Hello and welcome to Build a Game Live here on the BRAVOZONE. My name is Tristan and I'll be your guide today. Today we are focusing on TALLY, one of our most versatile instructor-led templates. Now, TALLY can do a whole lot of things for your live presentations. It is able to import PowerPoint slides, have a variety of question types, and really energize your audience when you're presenting. So without further ado, I'm going to dive in and create a TALLY game here. So let me just get my screen hopped over to that. This is your main screen of the BRAVOZONE once you've logged in. Now, the important things to remember are the BRAVOZONE is intended to be quick and easy, something you can put together, have it look professional, and it's something that is easy to do. We have the question editor here, which allows you to put your questions in ahead of time, which I have done for some of my TALLY questions. Not all of them, because it wouldn't be fair if I just had everything canned for a live presentation. But I'm going to dive into TALLY right here. When you click on TALLY, you'll see that it is in fact instructor-led only. And it has a short video that walks through some of the individual characteristics of TALLY. If you care to watch that, you can always unmute that here. And it gives a brief description of what TALLY is. You can do an interactive presentation with TALLY. You can have quizzes, polls, open-ended questions, all sorts of neat things with this template. If you haven't been using this template in your presentations, I think you'll be pleasantly surprised on what it can do for you. So I'm going to click Start. And here at the top, you see the 5 steps to create a template in the BRAVOZONE. These 5 steps are all the same for every template that we have. Your first step is going to be creating a title. So I'm going to put in the title of August Build a Game Live. For some of our templates that can be instructor-led or self-paced, you'll have the option to choose that here. But since TALLY is only instructor-led, that is our lone option. I'm going to click Create, and now we're on to the second step already, the content. Now over here in the question editor from the main page, I already put in a bunch of different questions here for TALLY. So these questions are all going to be circled around, or involving rather, the effective presentation and some questions about effective presentations. So what I'm going to do here with my pre-made questions, I can delete them, as you can see with that little trash can, by the way. I can just drag and drop them right over. So what this does when you're creating and you've already put your questions into the question editor, this allows you to focus more on the overall of what's going on in your presentation rather than on getting each slide or question to look perfect. So if I just had questions and answers over here that I'd put in, I can drag and drop them over. And then if I have time, I can add images or GIFs or throw in audio if I want. I can even mess around with some of the details of the order and things like that. But this makes the creation process not only much easier, but also a lot faster. And we all know when it comes to presenting, sometimes you don't have all the time in the world to create the world's most beautiful presentation. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to reorder these a little bit first. So maybe I want to start off with this instead of the ones I have. All I have to do is drag and drop it, and now it's there. This is an informational slide. I can have these in here just to convey some information, or I can import slides from PowerPoint, which I've done down here with this one. I'm going to change the order up a little bit more here. And you can also see here, you have these little symbols on the left-hand side. This gives you some information about your question at a glance. So here, this tells me what type of question I have. For example, this one, if the little dot you might see on a map tells me this is an image map question where our participants will be interacting with this image by clicking on it. It also tells me with these 2 letters that I have a preview and a summary slide, and I have an image attached to this. So at a glance, you can see all of what you've got going on with your questions. So I'm going to go in and I'm just going to add a question here. With TALLY, you have these 7 different types of questions that you can add in here. A slide is just information, and you should be familiar with multiple choice, true, false, and select all that apply. A polling question allows you to put different answers down there for your participants to choose from. And an open-ended lets them type in answers on their device, however they're playing along, smartphone or tablet or anything of that sort. An image map is the one I talked about just now, which allows you to put an image on there and have them interact with that image. I could also import a PowerPoint slide. To do so, when you have your slide deck open for PowerPoint, you can convert the slide over to a JPEG, and then you would add it like you would add any other media. So I could find that on my hard drive by clicking here, and then it will show up. You can add media the same way. It accepts all these different file types. You can click there to add from your hard drive. You can link to a website or a YouTube video. And if you previously uploaded things, you can find them in your media library. So what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to upload a little bit of an image here. And I'm going to throw in probably something a little different here. Let's see if, let's go with the Federal Deposit Insurance. So I've just uploaded an image. It's as easy as that. That will appear right alongside my question. I just click preview there. If I wanted, I could add audio. You can add audio the same way in those file formats, or you can even record right here. So you can talk to yourself if you're interested in doing something like that, or maybe you want someone else to record some audio to vary up the voices that your audience hears when you're presenting, which is always a good thing. So I'm going to type for this slide here. We've got the image here. I am going to just put a image map question here just to show how easy that is to do. So I create my hotspots just by highlighting what I want the correct answer to be. So for this question, I'm going to highlight the letter F there. And I'm going to ask my participants to click on the letter F. I've got basic text editing here. I can adjust the size, bold, italic, and underline. I can do subscript and postscript. I can even insert a link here if I want to go somewhere else. Of course, you should be familiar with these if you've done any text editing programs, as well as the bullet points and indentations. So now when I preview this, this is what people will see on their devices, smartphones, tablets, what have you, however they're playing along, and then they'll be asked to click there. If they click anywhere else, it will be marked as wrong. If they click on the F, that will be marked as correct. If I want to bookend my question with preview or summary, which is a good thing because you don't want a wall of text for your participants to encounter, this is where you can do that. And this not only if people are playing with their smartphones, sometimes they have smaller screens, this allows them to read things a little bit easier than squinting at a small font on the screen. But this allows you to give some flow to your presentations, have some preview, have some summary, and this can take the place a lot of what PowerPoint does with your questions embedded and reporting function. Last but not least, I can decide the points. You noticed when I was on the full question list, I had all of them worth the same amount of points. This one, we're going to have to be worth 500 points because I think that's a difficult question. So I can show the response percentages for each answer. So I, as a presenter, know how people are answering, and I can even show them live as the answers are coming in. If I want, since it's an image map question, I can also show where different participants are clicking on the image. This can be very useful when you're dealing with highly technical things, such as graphics of anatomy or machines or things like that. You know exactly at a glance where your audience is clicking. So I'm going to save that question. It's right down there, worth a whopping 500 points. And I'll create one more, and then we'll move on to the next step. So this one, I'm going to have it be an open-ended question. How are you doing today? And then people will just input their answers into the text field on their device. And as a presenter, their answers will kind of pop up on the screen. If everyone remembers pop-up video from the 80s and 90s, where they had the little bubbles of information pop up on the screen, it kind of does something like that with the open-ended question where people can type in and they show up on the screen. So I'm going to leave that as is. I showed you how to add audio and media. So I'm going to leave this question as is. I'm not going to do anything too fancy to that. So I've got my questions in here. And again, if I wanted, I could even have just an informational slide where I type in information or just import my PowerPoint slide to it. So if you already have a deck of PowerPoint slides, you don't have to reinvent the wheel. You can just bring them over, and now they're part of a quiz that's interactive. It has the same information, and you can record the data at the end. I'm going to go over to graphics now, third step in our process. We have some basic backgrounds here, and much like anything else, I have more to choose from here, or I can upload a background from my hard drive. So if I want, I can upload an image, and I can just drag that there from my hard drive by clicking on it. I'm going to pick something that is fairly innocuous and easy to look at there. I can mess around with the background color if I decide not to go with an image. I can put a custom logo up by my title. Same process there for uploading an image as you do everywhere else. I can play around with the fonts, and I can even customize the intro and closing screen. So for example, for the closing screen, I'm going to put congratulations. Hopefully I spelled that right. You did it. That message will show up at the end, and I can add media or audio to that if I want. I'm going to add a little bit of a media here just to give another glimpse at how easy it is to add media to this. I'm going to go over here and find one of my GIFs. We're going to go with this one. It's a public domain GIF that I found online, so that I don't have to worry about paying for royalties or use. Pardon my internet here while we're doing the uploading. This is not typical for the BRAVOZONE. My internet is the one that is causing this uploading to take a moment. While this is uploading, you want to be very conscious of the images and GIFs that you are using, because you don't want them to distract from your information. After all, the whole point of presenting with Tally and to get this information conveyed to your participants is that they're engaged, so they retain more of it. And if they're too busy staring at your image of a bear eating a sandwich or something like that, they're not maybe paying attention to you talking about the intricacies of your new HR policy. So I've got my closing text, my closing GIF, and if I want, I could add audio the same way I do throughout the process. I can either click up here in options or click next. People respond using their devices, and I can decide if I want people on teams or to participate individually. If I go with the teams, I can customize the names, the colors, and the images, and decide how many teams that there are. I'm going to leave it on individuals for the purpose of this demonstration, and I'm going to run a question timer. Now, this is a global timer for each one of the questions. You don't want this to be too long or too short. Too short is frustrating. Too long ends up not having very much meaning for your participants. So you want to practice your template once you have it built and see what time feels right. I'm going to go with 20 here, and I'm also going to reduce the score or points as the timer elapses. With presentation text, here you can customize anything that appears in the quiz. So for example, when student shows up, I can change that to whatever word I want. Or the greeting of welcome, I can say something in Klingon if I know the word for welcome in Klingon. Just an example, you don't have to use Klingon. You can also change little things like the next and back buttons. Really customize your template and make it your own. Everything from the feedback to answer labels, it is all there at your fingertips to customize. Feel free to dive in to do that and make these templates your own when you're creating with the BRAVOZONE. At the bottom, we have the reports and data collection. This is what your participants will see when they start off with a tally. You can decide what information you want to collect from them. Maybe you want to collect their middle name or something else. Their department is also an option if you want to collect that, if you're doing something company-wide. But speaking of departments, we have this demographics thing down here. So what we can do here, if I want, I can say department, and this is just one example. Excuse my misspelling there. And then what I can do is, let's say I'll put in a couple different departments here. Things like that. I'll make this go to 3 here. What this does is, if you look over here, you see that people can select what department they're from. So I'm doing an individual instructional mode where people can compete with each other on their scores. But if I have people divided by the departments, now not only do I get data at the end on how each department did, but I also can, in the middle of the quiz, say, oh, well, it looks like person X is in the lead. But if we look over here, shipping is doing the best out of the departments that we've got. And if someone is not doing too well, the more options you have for them to be on a winning team, the more engagement you have. So even if someone is not doing the greatest, but they're on a team that's maybe right there, right about to take the top spot, and they're just in second, or they're on the top team, or even on the bottom team, it gives them more incentive to pay attention, be engaged, and try to play along. This demographics is very, very useful, and we just added it a little less than a year ago. So I highly recommend you take advantage of the demographics option here with the BRAVOZONE. Finally, we're on the publish page. I can click a preview link where I get to see not only how everything looks, but also the questions and the answers on a separate window or tab on your browser. I can convert this to a Spark quiz. Now, Spark, if you're not familiar with it, has all the same features as Tally, but it is self-paced. This opens up a whole new world, because if you're presenting in Tally and a couple people can't make it, maybe they have to leave early, you can go back and record your speaking and your audio for each slide, and then convert your Tally to a Spark and send that out as a link, and they can experience the same content, the same information, the same quiz as your live participants, and it allows you to compare apples to apples. So this is really neat. You can also go the other way. When you're creating a Spark, you can convert it over to a Tally. So you have an assessment created. It's very important that people go through it. And now all of a sudden you have to present, and it's the same information. With one button click, now it's in Tally, and you can present it. And you can do all sorts of neat things with doing it live. So this is very handy to go right back and forth between the two. If I want, I can practice this, which allows me to check on the timing for things like the question timer and to really practice my presentation. I can also put dummy participation in there, computer controlled, whatever you want to call them, and have the computer play along, which will give me an idea of how that looks and feels. If I have more than one builder in my organization, I can choose to share this with them or not, so they don't have to reinvent the wheel when they're going through and doing presentations. And I can also decide if they can edit it or not. Maybe I want them to see it and use it, but not be able to change it. This is going to require, right here, participant sign-in requirements. We're just going to go back to the options quick. This is confusing a little bit for some people. I want to make sure that we address this. By default, no sign-in required is on all of the templates when you create them. And the sign-in screen will look just like we saw. However, if I decide that I want sign-in required, what this means, if we go back over to options, that now if they're not registered, they have to register. Name, password, email, things like that. This allows me to track the data that I'm getting from them in a more reliable manner. You can still track the data if you have no sign-in required. But let's say you have multiple presentations that you have to do over several days with the same group. If you have no sign-in required, a person by the name of Tristan, my name, let's say, the first day signs in with the letter T. The next day they sign in with their nickname. The third day they sign in with Tristan, but they misspell it with a Y instead of an I. It's still tracking their data, but now you have to interpret with our reports if they're all the same person. Once you say sign-in required, now they have to log in the same way each time, which makes it a lot easier to collect data from them. This is especially important if you're doing something more serious like an assessment. I'm going to select no sign-in required because we're going to play through this quickly here today, and you'll get to see not only how it was built, but how it looks on your own smart devices or however you choose to play along. So I'm going to publish this, and it is ready to play. If I hadn't put any questions in or any content, that would have given me a warning and it yelled at me a little bit. And now if I go back and I change anything, it will warn at me that it will be unpublished. I need to publish it again to be able to play it. This is the presenter link that's created once you click publish. What this will do is open up a new window. I'm going to click on that now, a new tab. This is what you'll see as a presenter. And on the fly, let's say my group is much larger than I initially anticipated. I can select teams and we can divide people up that way. I can even turn on anonymous mode on the fly if people are a little competition averse. I'm going to turn off the default sounds only for myself because I forgot to share the sound settings of what I'm showing. So I would be hearing the sounds, you wouldn't anyway. So I don't want that to distract me from what I'm saying. So now I'm going to start. Remember, I didn't customize the intro screen or put a custom logo up here. Down at the bottom, we have the link that you can use to join in as a participant and my unique instructor ID. Every one of our builders or instructors has their own ID. But if you're patient, here on the next screen is a QR code you can use to sign in, which I invite you to use now to sign in and see what this looks like on your end. The link at the bottom, along with the ID, will stay there the entire presentation. So you will get to see this throughout every single one of your slides. Just in case someone comes in late, arrives late, they can still play and you get that engagement and involvement. Here we have the leaderboard, and this is my first slide that showed up. It's just to convey some information. I don't have to have a question, and I can put, if I want, my entire PowerPoint on here this way. I'm going to collapse the leaderboard to get a little more real estate on the screen, and you'll notice when I hover over this little meter over here, it shows me who we're waiting on if this was a question who hasn't responded yet. This is handy information for a presenter to have. Maybe someone's having technical difficulties. This is all information you can get from the BRAVOZONE. I'm going to advance the slide here. It lets you know the timer is on. Here's the preview slide. In 2022, Indeed.com released an article that detailed 13 effective ways to communicate professionally. Besides leaflets, articles, and essays, what are some other effective ways to convey information professionally? Select all that apply, and you see the timer ticking down right now. And don't worry about right or wrong. Just experience what the BRAVOZONE has to offer here and see where you get. We've got both our answers in, so I don't have to wait until the timer disappears. But the timer went down, and here's the answers that people selected. We're going to move forward here, and those are all the correct answers. But as a presenter, if I need to, I can redo the question, I can talk about it, I can go back, I can see the percentages. And again, it's a way for me to really interact with my audience, talk to them instead of talking at them, unlike a webinar where I am talking at you. Here's my summary slide. The other methods are reports, visual aids, presentations, face-to-face, speeches, and print. Next question, timer is on. Here's the preview slide. We have a nice quote here. I'm not going to read that quote to you. I'll give you a chance to read that a little bit. We're going to move on. When presenting a chart to a virtual audience, what is something to keep in mind to more effectively convey your point? And this is select only one, not select all that apply. And you can see this bar filling up. And the timer expired. So we've got the answers there, or answer. And that is the correct answer. Here's some other things to consider. And again, I won't read over this. The point is not to get you this information, but to show you how you could use it and give you examples. Here we have a true false. Knowing your audience is not as important as being a fantastic presenter. Both answers are in. We're split down the middle, and false is the correct answer. Understand what your audience needs, wants for your presentation to be more effective with the time that you have. Here's an example of an open-ended question. In 1 or 2 words, what has your experience been like with presentation tools like PowerPoint? So here you can type in your answer and it'll pop up on the screen for everyone to see. And there we've got our answers from our audience. And again, as a presenter, this gives you real-time data to interact with your audience. And well, like my slide says, and make sure you're speaking to their experience. We're almost at the end here. Whether using the BRAVOZONE or not, creating effective slides is extremely important. Click on 3 things that are examples of bad slide design in this picture. So this is where you're doing an image map question and interacting with the image that you're seeing. It isn't as important getting the correct answer as just experiencing what we can offer. In fact, this is a good example where if I'd done practice ahead of time, I would have known my timer was a little bit too short, especially for something like this. So we've got some bad slide design here. We have an image that doesn't make sense and all sorts of things like that. There I had the audio. I don't know if you're able to hear it, but I had recorded audio here that I was able to play while I did this slide. Since I'm not sharing my sound, you probably did not hear the recorded audio, but here's where you can replay it if you want when you have audio on your slides. Second to last question here. This is a polling question, an example of one of those where people are choosing from predefined slides. And here is the bonus one, 500 points. Click on the letter F. Let's see who wants those bonus points. Oh, so close, so close. Final question. How are you doing today? Worth 100 points. And this is another example of that open-ended question where you have just to type in 1 or 2 word response and you can see that as the presenter. Over here, I see who we're waiting on. And then I can also look at the leaderboard and see how we're doing. JP is in the lead. Starts with an F. Very nice, PK. Well, I'm sorry to hear you're just okay, JP, but I'm glad you're able to attend today. Here's the customized closing screen. And as a presenter, I can look at how they did. I can address people, congratulate them. Congratulations, JP. And here I can even look at the most challenging questions. So sometimes it was because my timer was too short. But here again, live, I can address perhaps some knowledge gaps during my presentation. I can talk to the people and see why they answered, how they answered. Perhaps it was the building of my questions. When I'm done, I click close, and that'll close out this tab here on my browser. But I want to show you the gear here before we leave it. And I'm going to talk about, we could turn the timer off on any of the questions. We can show the top scoring users. Sorry, my tongue got tied there. We can view how all the participants are doing. And if we're running short on time, we can even skip to the final question. So we can still put an end to a session properly without it leaving open and kind of leaving it hanging. So I'm going to end the session. I'm going to save the report. We're going to go back to the BRAVOZONE. And there you've seen me create a tally template. You saw how I dragged and dropped questions because I made them in the question editor. You saw me create a few questions and we went through it. The whole goal of this is to show you how you can create an engaging presentation with Tally. You can import your PowerPoint slides from a deck that you already have made, and you can get your information through our scoring here. Or you can even, if you're doing self-paced, use an LMS system that you already have where you work, and it will interface with that. Before I finish up today, I want to open it up for any questions that anyone might have. And I'll be quiet for a moment. My microphone hasn't died. I just want to give a moment to let anyone ask any questions. You can also put them in the chat if you would like. I'm monitoring that as well. So now I'll give you that moment to ask anything you would like to ask, or if you want to see something else, please let me know. Well, I appreciate everyone's time here today. I don't want to belabor this and make it take forever. I do want to give you the rest of your day back here. And I want to make sure that you know that you can reach out to any one of us here at the BRAVOZONE if you're interested in trying the product for free. We will send you a demo, we'll work with you, and we'll help you with ideas to utilize this in your training to make your presentations go from 100 slide inducing groans from your audience to them really engaged in using their cell phones for more than just putting them under the table and trying to sneak, not paying attention. They're going to be engaged in using these during your presentations. In fact, using the BRAVOZONE as a micro gaming type of presentation works even better, where if I had 2 or 3 questions in Tally, then I switch over to Catapult or Moonshot in a little bit, then we do a little bit more slides, then we go back to something like Billionaire or Quiz Show. It really keeps that engagement up with your audience. So don't be afraid to mix it up. It will keep your audience guessing and using their cell phones in a positive manner, and you'll be gathering the data all at the end of the day. Thank you so much for participating. I appreciate everything that you all do for the BRAVOZONE here. And again, don't be afraid to reach out. Have a wonderful day.